Morning. Thank you. Well, we're standing in the way of lunch today, but it is a hot topic, so we want to obviously endear ourselves to you and obviously talk to you a little about IoT. I'm Tony Rossabi. I work for Digital Realty, and I look after the colo and connectivity business. And I'll just pass along, and then we'll talk a little bit about IoT for some brief introductions.
Okay. Hi, my name is Maile Kaiser, and I'm Vice President of Sales at CoreSite.
My name is Yokosawa, professor at Kyoto University, Joint Research Unit with Nomura Research Unit.
Thank you. So, really hot topic, and clearly a lot of interest over, I would say, has really turned up the heat in the last, I would say, 2.5 years. IoT is something that is, growing at transparent rates and is really growing at rates that I think we as a group, and we are going to stay away today from 3 areas of focus because we really just want to talk about IoT in general. We might touch on it, but we're not going to spend time and dwell on sort of the cybersecurity issues, the privacy issues, and the regulatory because we have a very short time here. We have only 20 minutes. So we really want to talk about the influence and kind of what's going on. But as everybody is aware of, IoT is growing at a rapid pace. I think the prediction now is roughly 100 billion IoT devices by 2025. And there's, by 2020, about $300 billion of revenue from IoT devices. So interesting to see the rapid growth, I think, and one can see that in daily life when you walk into your refrigerator is now wireless, or your stove, or your washer and dryer, and then the products that we have in our daily life, Nest and things like that. I think it's really growing and becoming very expansive. Maile and I were talking, and she said she attended a conference where Clorox is becoming an IoT potentially device. So I'll turn it over to the panelists to talk a little bit about IoT now as well.
Great, thank you, Tony. So CoreSite, if you don't know who we are, we own and operate 19 data centers across the US. We chose 8 major metropolitan markets where basically there's a huge population of companies and users that need to interconnect with each other. So CoreSite has built data centers, large-scale campuses that bring a huge, rich fabric of network providers, cloud providers, and enterprise users to all come together and interconnect and be able to do high-performance computing at the edge. We see the Internet of Things as an area of explosive data growth. As Tony mentioned, when you're connecting every single device to the internet, from your smartphone to your front door to your car to everything now that you can think of, and all of the power systems and cooling systems and critical infrastructure sitting inside of a data center, it's all connected. And as more devices come on, we are going to need to collect that data and analyze that data. And it's extremely latency sensitive, and you're gonna see more and more companies doing that compute and analytics at the edge. So CoreSite is realizing that this is, we are in a great location and perfect interconnection point to take advantage of this huge amount of performance-sensitive compute, and we're going to need to basically continue to expand and grow that capacity to make sure we can keep up with the explosive amount of devices that are going to be collecting data.
All right. Well, yesterday actually we had a session for the IoT and health, and we had talked similar things. And I am teaching students in Kyoto University, but most of my salary comes from a private company which is called Nomura Research. And we run these 3 data centers in Japan, and mostly dedicated to security industry. Securities means Nomura Securities, and also the logistics. And we are changing by the technology like the IoT or the 3D printing or the artificial intelligence. We are just reforming our business to adapt the new types of the digital technology. And our customers are changing, digitally transforming their business. So as well as our customers, we have to change the business more into the new types of the information technology. So that includes the digital transformation of the data set. I mean, it's a huge variety of the data set nowadays compared to the traditional data center. So we have to take care of the new types of the industry based on the new types of the data manipulation, and including the blockchain technology in the financial industry. It's not only for the financial industry. So maybe in the near future, many of the data center, our the data center will take care of the some sort of the artificial intelligence or the blockchain, or maybe as a new types of technology. So that's my view.
Thank you. I mean, I think you both stressed something that's really important that I don't think we've really captured, and this is about IoT, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's a really interesting point around data sets and analytics, and the impact that's going to have, and the actual information that can be gathered from the IoT. I mean, if you think about I think the latest fad is the Echo Dot and the Google Home, right? It's been it's been running rampant in terms of commercials and things like that. And again, I'm going to put aside the security and privacy and regulatory issues, but the data that can come out of that, device and others, the Nest or whatever, Canary is another one, is really amazing. So I think the analytics piece that you both touched on is hugely important. And I guess what my question for both of you is how, it's going to have an impact first, and maybe you can talk about the data center piece, and I think you touched on that, but it is, are we going to have to move from a latency sensitive product? I mean, these are both going to require, strict latency requirements, but I think, are we going to have to adjust the data center builds, or is there going to be complexities around bandwidth that can be brought in, because it seems like the large data sets are going to require, passages of massive amounts of traffic and data. And what we look at today is, if you think about the large websites where you order your groceries or whatever it might be, those data sets are being passed. And again, it's quite a sizable thing. And I think IoT, we probably didn't think that it was really around analytics, and that's super important. So I'll pass off to both of you.
No, I agree. I think analytics is hugely critical. I think that what we're learning now with all of the data that's coming in from these devices is we need to filter what's real and important, and that's going to actually help us learn new trends of, you think about just, traffic patterns. We're going to, now that the cars are collecting data and our devices are collecting data about the traffic that we're sitting in, we're going to now be able to start analyzing traffic patterns and traffic behavior, and I think it's going to take us into a whole different place. But you have to filter all that data, and there's so much to collect and analyze that I think, the traditional enterprise that is now having all of these new devices being connected, are they going to do that on-prem? Do they have the analytics to be able to do so? Do they need cloud to be able to support that? Do they have the networks available to them in their traditional data center? Or is that too much bandwidth? And do they need to then get closer to the edge where those devices are? So I think analytics is one area of focus that is going to change the landscape of how these enterprises and these companies are now needing to get in and really understand the information they have. So we see access to cloud and access to that huge amount of network that they're going to need. Where can they get a combination of both of those? So that's going to be new decisions that companies are going to start making, I think.
Oh, yes, thank you. Well, if we think about the analytics, we have the two different meanings. One is for our customers, So the analysis on the data itself. And the other one is analysis for the data center operation. So, and in our business as a data center operators, we have to change the structure of the data center or the data flow itself. So I mean that the usage of the IoT technology grows up, so the data center must be more distributed rather than the centralized. So there should be some static data flow structure we have now, but in the future we need to dynamize or dynamic data flow structure or planning to adapt to the new types of the IoT technology. So that's one thing we have to take care. So, and the other one is our customer wants to make a good analysis. So they want to move their data from one data center to another. So, or sometimes it's cross-border transformation, transfers. So we have to take care. There might be suddenly have a huge traffic between one data center to another. So that's a very tough things for us to the traditional operation of the data center. So that's everything is very new to us. Thanks.
Thank you. I think clearly with data centers, there's going to be an impact, but I think it seems as if in the late 90s, we thought there was this glut of bandwidth and nobody would ever use it. And clearly, with mobile data, and now we're moving into, this new transformation of IoT. I was talking to some folks where traditional enterprises, like a automotive company, would be classified as, an enterprise. But today, because of the IoT, it's being moved into sort of being worked with the traditional telecoms focus or the MSO space, service provider. So I guess my question is really around bandwidth, and is there enough bandwidth out there to handle the demand that we see? I mean, as just we're all talking backstage about the number of devices that we've been reading about, Gartner saying something, but it's just a massive amount. And how are folks going to get creative around the bound bandwidth? Do we need new diverse routes? Because there is going to be the sense of, okay, if it's a self-drive car and the bandwidth goes out, the connection goes out, what happens?
Right.
So I guess the impact of what is bandwidth going to do? And I think we can talk about, we can, even if you want to get into sort of wireless and towers and that impact, because I think there is going to be a huge impact. So I'll pass it off to both of you if you'd like to start.
Well, okay. So yes, bandwidth, the more bandwidth we have, that's better. So that's always the truth. But in the IoT, I think we have to take care a little bit more about the traffic. So I just wanted to highlight that the variety of or the non-static data flows. It's the nature of the IoT. So and not only the data flow, we have to take care of the multi-homing or the multiple locations. All of a sudden, we have to communicate with many points all over the world. So that's the thing we have to take care. And also the format of or the variety of the data packet is very, very different. We have the variety of that. So this is not what we have experienced in the past. So we had, for example, the security business, they had only a limited number of the branch offices. So we only had to take care of this limited number of the communications. So the IoT, virtually everything has the data transmission. So and again we have to have enough bandwidth, and also we have to adapt to the variety of the sort of the packets and the data. So that's a difference. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, from our perspective, I think with the demand of Internet of Things and other large-scale big data and mobility, all of that is just driving the amount of bandwidth needed through the roof. It's only getting larger. The amount of data is growing, the amount of network needs are gonna grow with that. And you're gonna see it on the wireless side. Technology just has to get stronger and bigger and more advanced. We're seeing subsea cables being built we don't have enough capacity. Within the data center, we're seeing customers go to 100 gig. We went from 10, we kind of skipped over the 40, and now everyone's ready for 100 gig and then beyond that. So it's a huge amount of bandwidth that's driving, or the Internet of Things is driving that huge amount of bandwidth. And it's no longer from data center to data center or business to business. It's now coming all the way to the user. And you have to have that much bandwidth now to the user holding those devices, whether it's the home or mobile. So it's critical, and it's going to explode just as much as the data center piece.
Great points, and clearly, a need for continued focus on bandwidth and growth and new specific routes and new cable systems, new technology. I think you talked about, and innovative technology. I think that what we've seen is in the data center space is the shrinkage of equipment. From equipment growing, and the increase in power usage, but. So it should be the next couple of years are going to be quite interesting of how how we react to the growth as well as and how we make and how we adopt new technologies and how we see that change. So I could take one because we have a limited amount of time, sort of real life, and the one I think that's most pressing, that's in the news all the time. I think you're hard pressed not to open up a website or the newspaper to see what's going on with self-drive cars. It's sort of the leading, area of focus within IoT. And I guess the question really is, it's kind of open-ended, but how do we go about, if let's just take, for example, somebody's driving from the U.S. and crossing the border into Canada, and again, we'll put aside the regulatory issues because we don't have nearly enough time to cover that. But how do we do that? I mean, it's a complex challenge that we're going to have to deal with over the next little bit, and it's not going to just be, within Asia. If you're driving from, a Thailand to Laos, or if you're driving from Vietnam elsewhere, it is going to be a challenge as we grow and this global emphasis on IoT. So I'll pass it off to you. It's sort of an open-ended question, and just want to kind of gather some information and some thoughts on that.
From my perspective, we have customers that are at the forefront of building these automated self-driving cars, and just even the traditional car has so much data. They all have computers. They all are sharing kind of the computers. Traditionally, were sharing kind of just their overall health and analysis, so you understood where you needed to improve from a service perspective. Now it's the car is driving itself. It needs the maps, it needs the routes, it needs to understand, the correlation of one car on the road next to the next car. All of that information is it's a huge amount of data, and it has to be, I see it the same way I see a data center. It has to always be on, it has to always be available, it has to always be right, and it's critical for that to work in our world. And then you're now crossing countries, and now you have, does this car speak to this location, and how do you actually map those two? There's so many different areas that we have to go with understanding how this is going to work. And it's already out there. I mean, they're already on the road in San Francisco. Right. But I think I look at it as the application is just as critical as most other applications. There's so many different components to it. The analytics and the data and the computer and the information that they have to have within the car. I mean, it's a data center inside of a car practically, when you think about it, what they need to run. So What are your thoughts?
Yes, but that's a very interesting analogy for to utilize the data cross-border or among the different situations. So one thing I have to highlight is we need a free data flow to assure and utilize the technology in the driving or the automatic driving or the human driving of anything. So unfortunately, in some countries, they are just limiting the usage of the data in their country or in their region. So actually, a Japanese business, for example, they had tried to implement IoT devices in the construction machines, like the bulldozers or cranes or the trucks. So they have some difficulty in transmitting data all over the world to the cloud data center in Japan. So the similar things will happen in the self-driving car or the driving assistance by the IoT. So we need a free flow of data to analyze the usage of the data again. So, and again, you have highlighted about the security and the privacy and many things to talk and the regulation. So that's another things. But if we don't have time, I can.
No, I think really, it comes down to what we, and this panel was not set around analytics, but it sounds like we sort of discovered that free flow of data and analytics is so important. I think you both captured the free flow, Professor, thank you. And I think, Maile, you really made something that's we all need to be cognizant of at this point is that we can't let it go down, right?
Right.
Because if it goes down, the catastrophic, challenges that we'll face.
Right.
And so it seems as if we're moving toward this, and we might be moving a little bit too precipitously because we want to ensure we iron out all the challenges before we push forward. And I think the challenge that we have to keep up with is the consumer expectancy that we want these new products and these new services. So I think it's a matter of ensuring that they're set to go to market. We have a few minutes left, and I just want to end on one note, and then we'll take some questions, or maybe we'll take some questions. Just give us one note. So quickly, for both of you, where do you think we're going with IoT in the future? Just a few seconds on that, and then if we could pass along.
Well, I think it's been with us for a long time already. In the data center business, we've been putting sensors on all the devices from cooling and power infrastructure so that we can understand better from a maintenance perspective, from an uptime perspective, from a usage and efficiencies perspective, how we're utilizing the infrastructure within a data center. That's actually evolving now to the point that the information that we're gathering, our customers want access to. So, in that particular segment of what I would consider IoT, it's evolving from information just from the operator to now sharing with the user. So that everyone has the same information and the same data. Where that's going, take it anywhere from your thermostat and understanding, this neighborhood requires this much and I can transfer my load over here, or from a power grid, or from, there's so many different areas that we're gonna actually learn. And it's gonna, you call it machine learning. We're going to be learning so much more about how we live and how we can be more efficient and how we can share information and how we can, understanding traffic patterns and where we need power. And there's just so many different levels that you can take this. When you bring it back to my world, and my world being in your world, being in our world, being in the data center business, I see it as we're just continuing to drive that explosion of data. We're continuing to need more and more compute at the edge, which means interconnected locations, which means access to cloud, hybrid solutions, and being able to actually understand what we have as we're learning. So,
Thank you.
I would be very brief. We have talked about the Internet of Things, but maybe we have to a little bit more take care a little bit more about the Internet or telecommunication for things, you know. So the IoT is based on the current Internet structure, but we have to reform the Internet itself for the things, or the telecommunication technology for things. So.
good point.
Very good point. We are out of time. I think we could take one question, if there is a question. If not, we'll thank the esteemed panels. Okay, I don't see any questions. So thank you very much. This was great. We appreciate your time, and I think there's probably a lot more to talk about. We had 25 minutes, which was a little bit tight,
Took a long
and,
time on IoT.
and we can definitely talk more. Just one, and so thank you very much.